Namaskar, I'm Advocate Saurabh Kunal. Welcome to my legal channel. Here we discuss topics of financial and legal education. So the today topic is Consumer Protection Act 2020. In this video, we will discuss about how to file the complaint under the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020. What are the provision? What benefit it is going to provide to the consumers, and we will also see whether any procedural change or any structural change has occurred in the new Consumer Protection Act, because there was a Consumer Protection Act 1986, and what was the need to bring this new law, Consumer Protection Act 2020. So we will discuss one by one every details of the Consumer Protection Act 2020. But first, let's start from the beginning. What is the definition of the consumer under the new law? So the definition of consumer, earlier in 1986, the definition of consumer was given under section 2(1)(d), which was the consumer is any person who buys or avails of any services for a consideration which has been paid or promised. So the same definition is still in the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020, but it is under section 2 subclause 7. So there is no any significant change in the definition of consumer. However, the sequence of the definition has changed, and the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020 is more elaborate. So before going to the technicalities, let's understand at a broad level what are the rights of consumer, because it is very important to know the rights of the consumer if you are going to file any complaint before the consumer court. So now the consumer forum, the district consumer forum has been that the terminology has been changed. Now it will be called as a district consumer commission, and at the state level also it will be state consumer commission, and at the national level also it will be called as national commission. So these are the changes, and pecuniary jurisdiction has also been changed. But now let's come to the rights of the consumer. What are the rights which is for the consumer? So first and foremost is the right to safety. As a consumer, you have the right to safety. Right to safety means the right to be protected against marketing of goods and services which are hazardous to life and property. It means any person who is selling any product which is hazardous to life or the property of the consumer should be prevented, and the consumer has a right against such product or such companies. Second thing is right to be informed. Right to be informed is also very crucial right. Every consumer has a right to know the quality, the quantity, the potency, the purity, and the standards, as well as the prices. What are the price which is written, and what is the price which is charged? So if there is any variation, he can complain about it. So basically, the quantity, the quality, the purity, the standard, and the prices are the basic information that every consumer should know before buying a product. Next thing is right to choose. Every consumer has a right in whatever possible way to access the variety of goods and services at competitive price. So that is also a very important right of a consumer. He cannot be deprived from the right to choose. He can choose variety of product on a competitive price. So that is also a very important right of a consumer. The next thing is right to be heard. Let's say if the consumer has any problem with the product that he has purchased, then he has a right to be heard. That if he is complaining, his complaint should be addressed. If he want any replacement or repair in his product, he has a right to get all these facilities. Now the next thing is right to redressal. Right to redressal means if a consumer has purchased any product on a guarantee or warranty of replacement or repair, then the company which has sold that product is obliged to fulfill his obligation. So these are the 5 basic rights of the consumer. And now coming to the how to file the complaint in the consumer court. So the first basic thing for filing the complaint is you need to collect all the document, all the receipts of the purchase of the services or warranty card, guarantee card, whatever it is, and also if there is any communication between the consumer and the manufacturing unit or the company. So you have to keep all the details in a documented form. Now, what could be the cause of action? The cause of action could be various. For example, if there is any deficiency in services, or any defect in goods, or any malpractices, let's say any fraud or any unfair trade practices has occurred in selling that product, then that is also a valid cause of action. So the cause of action is defect in goods, deficiency in services, as well as any unfair trade practices. As at times there is also variation. If the price is fixed, for example, if a product is fixed at 99, and if the seller is selling it at rupees 100, then it is also a valid cause of action, that whatever the MRP, the seller of the product cannot increase the value of that product. So it is also valid cause of action. So this is the cause of action for filing a complaint in the consumer court. Now, before filing a complaint in the consumer court, it is very important that the consumer must send a notice, a legal notice, preferably a legal notice to the company, in which he will describe his grievances, his issues in detail, and he will also mention the obligation or the promises that he has made at the time of purchase, and he will also mention all the details of the communication between both the parties, and he will also ask what relief he is seeking, and he can also ask what compensation he should get because of that defect in the product or deficiency in services, or any kind of harassment from the manufacturer side or from the seller side. So these are the things. First, you need to send a legal notice, a well documented legal notice, which will give a complete description of the problems, the grievances, the issues to the consumer, or to the company, to the manufacturer or to the company, so that he can, if there is time, so he can approach the consumer and redress his grievances. So it's a kind of final ultimatum or a warning to the manufacturer or the seller, that if the seller is not going to address his problem, then the consumer is going to file a complaint case. So that way you can you both the party can try to, if the manufacturer or the seller is ready, he can amicably settle the issue. Now the next thing is, if within the prescribed time limit, if the seller is not rectifying his obliging his moral duty or his professional obligation, or rectifying the problem, then the consumer can file a complaint in the consumer court. For filing a complaint in the consumer court in the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020, he has to file it under Section 35. Now, Section 35, earlier people used to file it under Section 12 of the Consumer Protection Act 1986, but this time you have, now onwards, you have to file it under Section 35 of the Consumer Protection Act 2020. Now there is also a difference in the pecuniary jurisdiction. Pecuniary jurisdiction means the value of the product. In the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020, if a product values from up to 1 crore, it can be filed in the district forum or the district commission, and from 1 crore to 10 crore, it can be filed in the state commission, and from 10 crore onwards, it can be filed in the national commission. So the pecuniary jurisdiction in the latest Consumer Protection Act 2020 has been changed. At the same time, the forums, which were earlier called as forum, district forum, now it is also changed from forum to commission. So that is the structural change and the procedural change that occurred. At the same time, the Consumer Protection Act 2020 also tried to incorporate various digital platforms like Flipkart, Amazon, and also like various things like multi-level marketing, direct selling, e-retailing, e-commerce transaction, which were not present in the Consumer Protection Act 1986, which was enacted in a pre-globalized era. But the new Consumer Protection Act 2020 is more consumer friendly. Even a consumer, many times what happens, a consumer finds that worth of the product is less, and if he goes into litigation, the cost of litigation will be much more than the total cost of the product. So in this way he tries to minimize by reframing. But the new Consumer Protection Act 2020 gives an option that a consumer can file an online complaint, and there can be a virtual hearing also. In this way, this is big relief to the consumer. At the same time, territorial jurisdiction, a consumer now can file in the territory where he is residing. In the previous Consumer Protection Act 1986, there was provision that the consumer has to move to the jurisdiction where the company is established or registered. So now there is a facility that now the consumer can file it in its own jurisdiction where he is residing. So this way it is going to help. Now, after giving the complete details of the grievances and issues, you have to also mention what communication has occurred between you and the seller. At the same time, you have to also give details of the transaction, what happened, how much amount you have paid, and what are the responses. You have to give a complete detail. Then you have to ask for the relief, how much what relief you are seeking from the seller, and preferably in the monetary value, or what harassment you have gone through. You have to also give it in the monetary value, what mental harassment or physical harassment, or what kind of monetary relief for the value of the product you want because of the defect in goods, or deficiency in the services, or any unfair trade practices. So this is the way you can file it under Section 35 of the Indian Consumer Act 2020. So, and the new Consumer Protection Act is very consumer friendly. You can check it on the internet also. The website also supports, you can complain it there. So this is all about the new Indian Consumer Protection Act 2020. In the previous video, there was some confusion whether the Consumer Protection Act 1986 has been repealed or not. So I want to make it clear that the Consumer Protection Act 1986 has been repealed altogether, and new Consumer Protection Act 2020 is on place, and it is not just the change in any kind of amendment, it is a complete structural and procedural change. So the new Consumer Protection Act, you have to follow it. So this is all about the new Consumer Protection Act. If you like my video, please like, comment and share, and please subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed. Thank you so much for watching my video.